Important thing which has acquired much more importance in today's times, considering the example I just gave you before lunch. I'll be rushing through these two sessions, and if by chance at the end of the session some queries are left, I'll be more than happy to answer in your registered group only. Because I have a flight at 9 and we had a bad experience of traffic yesterday. In spite of Ashish's best and heroic efforts, it took us 4 hours and 15 minutes to reach from airport to Kalyan. So I don't have that kind of margin today in spite of the fact that my flight is at 8:55. Okay, so again I thank God for all the things He has blessed me. I've done my MLE from National Law School, Bangalore, one of the best law schools of India, and which really grinds you, doesn't let you pass easily. So what is ethics? Ethics is basically moral science. Moral science, moral principles. If we simplify it, if we say, how well do you listen to your inner voice? कितना भी आप गलत रास्ते जाना हो ना, अंदर से एक आत्मा, आपका अंतरात्मा जिसको बोलती है मत कर मत कर मत कर, फिर भी वो उधर से EMI का प्रेशर, उधर से कुछ, चलो कुछ नहीं भी करना, we resort to that thing, and sometimes it spells doom and trouble for us. So definition of ethics is a system of code and conduct advocated by individual or group. So they come from Greek word mores and ethos, and which mean the idea of custom. It is actually a study of virtues and vices. So medical ethics is not different from any special ethics, but only means that it concerns doctors and the patients. And like marketing had customer at its focus or its center, medical ethics we have the doctor-patient relationship. The relationship, as I said, based on faith and trust. If the patient has, say, laid his faith onto us for his tooth, and we give it or we breach that trust, then that relationship is malaligned. So medical ethics is not different from, as I said, normal ethics, but it is our healthcare responsibility to each patient and obligation to follow ethics as a proper science. This is the Hippocratic Oath. We might not have taken it, but we are all obliged to follow it. As a dentist or doctor, we have some moral duties in which it is help, care, promote, confidentiality, patient's life protection, for doctors, in our case, patient's tooth protection, autonomy, privacy, and dignity. These three are very important parts, and these are the things sometimes which lead to a problem. And what are the rights of patient? High quality service, autonomous choice. As I told you, autonomous choice means you lay out all the options, but the final choice of treatment regimen is patient's. You cannot force any treatment onto the patient. The final call will always be patient's. He has the right to decide, to be informed. Informed includes the treatment part also and the consent part also. You can't touch the patient without his permission. If the patient has come to you for a checkup and he says, "Mere ko checkup karwana hai," and he sits on the chair, he has come, he has given you his implied consent voluntarily. You didn't call the patient. At that point of time, after the consultation, if any treatment plan is discussed, a contract starts between you and the patient. And that contract is covered under the Indian Contract Act. As a contract, it is your duty to honor that. In today's times, I get many questions from many people. Are we entitled to refuse a patient? Or are we allowed to refuse a patient? Yes. But before the treatment starts. You can't abandon the patient in middle of the treatment. Patient has the right to leave you in middle of the treatment. Paying or without paying is a different matter altogether. But you cannot abandon the patient midway. You may call it a biased law, but that is the way the medical law functions. So the patient has right to privacy, health education, and to dignity. As ethically, yes, Under ethically, sorry, no, but under Contract Act, yes, you can. But again, it depends upon proper history taking also. So what are the expectations? These all have skyrocketed in the past many few years. The patients expect us to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, whereas we expect them to be obedient, cheerful, and paying us on time. But all the expectations are not realistic. So should the patients be warned at the outset about limits of dental treatment or medical treatment? Yes. That is from where the phenomenon of consent form comes in. And because there is so much variability in decision making, there are many implications also. So what are the standards to determine the incompetence? If the patient understands the treatment properly after the informed consent, then the patient has the full right to refuse the treatment. But if the patient has inability to express the situation or has the rational information or is not able to give you the proper answers to your questions, then you cannot make the patient as fit enough to make a decision. So let's take an ethical scenario. A medical dental error has occurred. Should the physician disclose this information? As we discussed in the morning, as an ethical obligation, yes, you have to disclose each and everything. There might be many things associated with it, but as a matter of fact, if you commit any mistake, you have to cover for it. And if any mistake has occurred, as I told you, prior consent form is always mandatory. So what are the key principles of medical ethics? There are 4 main principles: patient autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, and 3 other principles: informed consent, confidentiality, and honesty. What are these? We'll discuss all of them one by one. Autonomy. As I told you, the patient has the full right to be informed, take all the decisions after weighing all the pros and the cons. You have to inform patient all the possible options for suppose any treatment. And whatever the patient chooses, that is the patient's autonomous right. Make sure the patients have the decision-making capacity. They don't lack the skill. They are not confused or mentally ill patients. Or if they're accompanied by a guardian, their guardian is authorized enough to make a decision. So autonomy principle means right to information, free and informed consent. Make sure that you don't take a blank consent form signatures. Make sure you don't take them without witness signatures. Preferably your staff member as one witness and patient's accomplice as other witness. Preferably. And make sure that if your patient does not understand English, all the things have to be explained and written in local vernacular. The patient can anytime refuse, I don't understand English. In court, you cannot hold that signed consent form in favor of you. That will go against you. As I told you in the marketing prachar, should be in the simplest language. Consent has to be in the easy language and patient's language, not in the language you understand. Again, a biased thing, but that is how the things are. You should be aware. So, it is the patient's free will and accord whether he wants to continue the treatment after you tell all the pros and cons. But again, it goes with the patient should have capacity to think, right, and take action. So, non-maleficence. As we discussed in the morning, we are not supposed to do any harm to the patient intentionally or unintentionally. So, sanctity of life is to be respected, and risks, if taken, have to be calculated, and the patient has to be informed before taking any such, of course with the consent also. So beneficence. These are all basically micro level principles of medicine. We use them in dentistry as such because these are best, especially in those cases where you expect that patients, some research is going on, the patient is suffering from certain deadly disease. He allows the research onto his body. So this is in a way a principle of beneficence. But again, the consent has to be required. So this consideration comes with the principle that we have to do only, beneficence means do good. You are not supposed to do any harm to the patient. So justice, all patients are to be treated equally, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, sex, whatever. No discrimination, no distinguish is to be made in any sort of categorization. So social responsibility is we have to do it for the greater good of the society so that we all respect the law. We all know about informed consent. The basic thing is the simplest procedures work with verbal or express consent, but for complex procedures, I tell you my fundamentals in this. Wherever I find I have to inject anesthesia or wherever there is blood involved, which can be, say, beyond limits sometimes, suppose in an extraction only, I take a written consent. For scale, I don't resort to written consent unless the patient is a diabetic, a kidney disorder, a liver disorder, or anything which can induce bleeding, which say without any reason or without any provocation. Where any bleeding is involved or where I have to inject something, I always take a written consent. There is no hard and fast guidelines. Ideally, they say do everything in written to be on the safer side. But you find it practically difficult to give or say, rather ask for a consent for a normal class 1 cavity or even for a normal scaling or oral prophylaxis procedure. You find it difficult for such procedures to take a consent. But then, as it suits one's sensibilities, for complex procedures do go for it, but for non-complex ones take a verbal or a implicit consent. Another reason for taking consent is where the stakes are high. Anything above 2 to 5,000 prefer, or not 2 to 5,000, anything above 5,000 take a written consent. Wherever the stakes are high in monetary part, prefer going it that way. So what constitutes informed consent? The patient should be able enough to make a decision. He should understand. You should not push the treatment, or no persuasions also, and verbal or written as I discussed with you. So patient data is one of the important principles of patient data security or confidentiality is one of the important principles of ethics. As we discussed about on social media being dished out to us every day on various platforms. So that is basically breaching patient confidentiality. They should be blackened out through the eyes so that their real identity is not disclosed. Anyways, then there has to be only reasons when we can disclose the patient data when we are required by any court of law, or when we require any kind of public health laws require us to make it for any statutory requirements. So this relationship is based on loyalty and trust, and we should not be breaching that. So what are the exceptions to medical confidentiality? Patient gives written and valid consent to share his images to other participating professions. You can discuss with the professionals, but you can't even transfer images. Of course, this is not to be strictly followed, we all do that, but make sure that the other professional does not transmit the images anywhere else. So whenever undesirable, this can be given by close relatives, and for these you don't need a consent form. So honesty, patients expect us to be honest. You might. Patient expects us to be very honest in the treatment so that we stay tuned to our principles. Truth telling, principle of truth, veracity means truth telling. The patient has full obligation to actual and honest disclosure. So what is the conclusion of medical ethics? We are supposed to be healers, and the relationship or role is built on expertise, ethics and service. We as dentists are supposed to love teeth. So what does the DCA Code of Ethics say in us? It is basically similar to Medical Code of Ethics, Dentist Act, which was, say, formed in 1948, revised in 1991, and some amendments made in 2016 also. So they are basically meant so that we uphold the standards of professional etiquette. So what does the code of ethics say to us? That all will depend upon the skill and the prompt attention. We have to treat patients' welfare as the prior important thing. Be courteous, sympathetic to patient, and always ready to help. Punctuality, uniformity, these are all stereotype principles as mentioned in the medical code, which had been mentioned by the Dental Council of India also. And this thing, take just remuneration for the professional services. And this just is actually debatable. Some people find a 500 just for a composite filling, some find 3000 just for a composite filling. So who decides those things? The council does not give any recommendations. ID doesn't have enough members. So we are free to choose our own world. So what are the duties of the dentist towards patients? They are much similar to the medical law. We have to give our best of skills possible. We have to devote our full attention, and we have to discharge our professional duties in a professional manner. Be courteous, sympathetic, punctuality, no say discrimination on the basis of any criteria. So we deem it as a point of honor to adhere to us with as much uniformity as much possible. So the best recommendations for us are reputation, professional ability, and fidelity. We have, as a dentist, duty towards each other also. It has been very clearly defined by Dental Council of India, again based on the Medical Council laws or the Medical Council Code of Conduct. So we should take, or say we should not tear them apart through their character after just looking through X-ray. We should do no harm to the interest. We should honor mutual agreements if we are working on a share basis. And this concept may be valid in your city, but we have faced a lot of problem. If a patient is referred to another doctor for one treatment, the patient never comes back to the original doctor for the main treatment where it was going on. So patient snatching attitude has been much there. I'm not sure how professional it is out here, but it is very unprofessional in at least my state, whole state, not in my city alone. So we have to render a gratitude service to a fellow dentist, his spouse, and there is no bars from charging from our colleagues also. We can charge our colleagues if we want. I paid for my own dental treatment whenever I got it done. So I don't mind paying it, because if I'm getting it, nothing comes free, I agree to that. So you can charge a colleague also if you're rendering a service. Although there is no bar, you can do it for free also. So what does the doctor-patient contract say? As I told you, they come under the Indian Contract Act. So there starts an unwritten contract between the two. It is an implied contract, say, where written informed consent is obtained for most of the treatment part. Then a doctor can't go to treatment except for emergencies when he can't recover. If you offer emergency services, how many of you have written emergency 24 hours? No one. If anybody has written outside his board or on his pad, then he is bound to provide emergency services, be it on any media, digital media, maybe on your website, maybe Facebook web page, maybe on your pad, maybe on your outside board, maybe on your clinic outside glass. If you have written anywhere, you are bound to provide a service. As a doctor also, in any ethical scenario talking, you are supposed to provide the service. So the contract is not established. If you render the first aid in emergency, this was given by the Supreme Court, then you are not bound by that thing. If anything wrong happens to the patient, you are not medico-legally negligent in that part, because you are rendering first aid, and most of the time the patient is not in a condition to give a informed consent. So you are not bound that way. During a examination, for life insurance, for a trial court appointment, or for any law purposes, any statutory or legal reasons, you are offering any services to any patient for any reason. Even when you are in medical board, it's not mentioned, but even in a medical board, then also you are not, then you don't come under that contract. So what are the obligations? Continue to treat and not abandon the patient. What are the exceptions to abandoning the patient? Patient has recovered from the problem for which the treatment was undertaken. Suppose he came to you with a chief complaint. You have recovered that, you got the money, but you believe that the patient is, because of any reason, is not a good paymaster, or the behavior is not good, or the appointment scheduling is not good, the patient does not come on time, he speaks harshly, he speaks rudely. Whatever reason, your first is completed, you can always refuse the patient before renewing the contract for the second. So, if the patient does not pay your fees, you can abandon the patient. This is an exception to that. Patient consults any other doctor without your knowledge and then asks you to do it as the other doctor suggested, you can abandon that patient that way. Then if they don't cooperate with your instructions and we are convinced that the injury is fictitious. So this doesn't apply to us basically. So as a dentist, we are supposed to give reasonable care. If it is beyond us, we have to consult the specialist. We don't have to project ourselves as a man for all solutions. We cannot treat everything and everyone. So we have to exercise reasonable skill, not to undertake any procedure beyond your skills. As I told you in the morning, the court expects us to behave like any normal person would behave in normal circumstances. They don't expect us to be Hercules. They don't expect us to do extraordinary things. What a normal person with a normal sense of judgment would do, they expect us to do that. So what is the contractual liability for hospitals? They have to provide medical services, technical services, nursing staff, hygiene, cleanliness, and many other normal routine services. So what are the elements of negligence? Let's come to this part. Kindly don't confuse say culpability and negligence. These are two different things. Negligence means lack of proper care and attention causing damage to the patient. There are three essential components followed by the fourth one. There was a duty to the patient because of the contract between patient and us. We breached that faith and duty of the patient. It caused a damage, and that damage or injury was concomitant or related to the same. So negligence is a tort which causes us to take damage, resulting in damage. So the plaintiff is the customer or the patient or the complainant. We are the tortfeasor in court's language. Once the doctor starts the treatment, the duty of the care arises. If there is a problem or a negligence, then the complainant has to prove that the doctor has fallen below the standard of care. He cannot do this part without support from any other colleague or without any recommendation of a dental board. So what does it tell you? We have to relate our colleagues equally. We have to give our relation equally. So court expects as the standard of care what a reasonable man would do under circumstances. So whether the doctor has exercised the required skill, it is determined by the court only. They take the advice of medical board, as I told you, and it has to be proved that the same incident was due to negligence only. So failure to attend and other excuses don't find a footing in the court because the patient has to prove that his health deteriorated because of the same. So exactly dental negligence part discussing, a simple lack of care or error of judgment is not a proof of negligence on part of health professional. We have to understand. So as long as the doctor follows a practice suitable to routine standards or acceptable standards, then we cannot be held negligent. Sometimes there are two schools of thought available. Suppose a patient has come to you for root canal. You are not offering rotary services, for example. You did a manual root canal. The root canal is fine. The patient is fine. You did a good job. He comes to know from a colleague that a rotary option also exists. He can't file a case. There was rotary option available, but the doctor did not use the same. Just because an alternative line of treatment is available, the patient can't hold you guilty. This is for you to understand. Then again, thinking on the other side, if you're doing a rotary root canal and the patient has a problem then you'll have to prove that you are trained in root canals. And if you are not, then again you are in problem. So don't use those skills or exercise those skills which fall outside your ambit. So a professional may be held negligible for two factors. Either he didn't possess the requisite skill जिसका उसने claim किया था, or he didn't exercise the reasonable competence for which he had those skills. So lack of skills or lack of competence are the two broad reasons for doing that. So legally the tort of civil wrong can be established if the elements, as I discussed, standard of care, we did not maintain that standard, there was an injury, and the connection between the injury and the act of the dentist has to be proved. So even if the service if the service has not been paid for, not is missing, even if you have done a complimentary job, you are still liable if the patient has any problem. Only persons who don't come under such act are the government hospitals, where no treatment fees is charged, only token money for registration is charged for a slip or a card. Otherwise, any charitable hospital, any clinic, anyone else offering free treatment to that patient, but otherwise charging from all patients, is not immune. They are all covered under Negligence Act. So don't think that if you didn't charge the patient even a single penny, you are not liable to face damages in that. Because the damages are not concomitant with what you charged. It is considering, I'll come to that details, the life of tooth health, the loss patient has faced, and the damages which have been caused to the patient. But still the onus is on the patient to prove that he is victim of negligent service and also suffered damage in the process. So as I said, these two things cannot be proved until our own colleague helps them, as it was evident in the Chandigarh Ambala case, or the medical board has something recommendation against the dentist. So that is why I say live in harmony with your neighbors. So which are the acts which are falling within the ambit of medical negligence? Misrepresenting the skills which you don't possess, recklessness in treatment, carrying your home tensions to your office. We discussed that in the morning, never do that. Indifferent handling of different cases. So evident negligence like extracting a wrong tooth, administering a prohibited medicine, failure to act diligently and alertly, wrong diagnosis under which no norms of practice can be justified. Diagnosis is the key. And for that, again, you ought to trust your own skills. So what is law of torts? It is basically the law of compensation and for the damages which are provided by the court. And these are based on many judgments that have been passed, and usually the judges consider the old judgments as a benchmark before they decide on the quantum of punishment, quantum of compensation for that matter. So the common law states that any dissatisfied party should have grounds for compensation which prove all the four elements which we discussed. Three elements resulting injury connection. Plaintiff means the customer, as I said, and the tortfeasor means the service provider or you. So what are the guiding principles? There was an executor contract. We failed to keep the required standard of care, or we breached the faith and trust of the patient. There was actual injury, and we used here in sense of Section 4 IPC. Section 4 IPC, it denotes injury. The injury, any illegal harm caused to any patient in body, mind, reputation or property. So that is what Section 44 says. So what is the defense of doctors in tort cases? That many things have been undergoing change. Medical science is not perfect science. Even the law and the courts acknowledge that. But since certain things are to be done in a certain manner, that is what the code expects us to do. So what are the defense against various principles? The first thing we can say, there was no contract between the patient and us, which is very hard to prove. Then we did prescribe the required standard of care, and the say problem was caused because the patient failed to keep the instructions, which can be counted as contributory negligence on part of the patient. We can say that. These are all defense principles for us. There was no actual injury, so as claimed in that scaling case. Finally, if there is no proximate cause, no demonstrable link, we can prove that this injury is not related to what treatment we did. I remember there was a case where the patient had filed a suit. He said, the doctor injected me with LA. I had giddiness. I went home. He was fine after some time. But because of that injection, I developed diabetes. And it was very funnily accepted in the consumer court that LA caused blood sugar. The decision was later reversed in the state tribunal, but the doctor had a loss of reputation which ran in several thousands at that time. Don't be afraid. But such kind of people make allegations. Even last week, some patient told me, डॉक्टर ने इंजेक्शन उसके बाद मेरे को पता नहीं क्या हो गया, मेरी बैक में दर्द चालू हो गया. मैं I didn't want to say it कि you haven't delivered a baby. वो देते हैं स्पाइन में एनेस्थीसिया. Why do you feel that way? So I didn't say it, but sometimes these are some funny incidents patients report. और डायबिटीज वाला लुधियाना में भी हो चुका है. वो पेशेंट्स आके रिपोर्ट किया, चलो ये तो केस किया ना, दैट वाज रिपोर्टेड. अदरवाइज ऑल्सो मेनी क्लिनिक्स, नॉट वन, मेनी क्लिनिक्स, वो डॉक्टर ने इंजेक्शन लगाया उसके बाद ही मुझे शुगर हुई. Contributory negligence, as I said, we can take a plea that the patient did not obey the instructions, because of which the complications arisen in that case. So there must be some demonstrable event by the patient to claim to his defense, but here too the doctor can't even totally absolve himself. For example, an implant failure in a smoker. Again, that onus will fall back on us. If the patient was a smoker, why did you give an implant? Law is unfair to us. Many ways. We only have to be on the safer side so that we don't fall in any trouble. So contributory negligence is not considered in criminal negligence, but as a valid defense of tort cases. So, but basically these are the various criteria courts take into account while awarding the damage. So defense can be that the consent was one and such complications were explained to the patient and no guarantee of cure, guarantee warranty comes. If we offer that, it is a problem. Sometimes medico-legally also. The doctor took full guarantee of the treatment. Those who are giving for them. Of course, all of us, majority of us don't. So, any complication, the patient willingly accepted these. But then again, if we take this defense, we have to prove it. How do we prove it? Informed consent. Signatures. The patient can't refute that. Once the patient knows he had signatures, he has put signatures somewhere, he'll think twice before going for a case. They're more, say, liberal or more confident because we lack in that part, because of our insecurity of losing that patient. Never know what a patient can turn out to be. I have seen a case in my friend's clinic, not directly, but he told me. He just gave an injection for an extraction. Just a normal infiltration in this premolar area. Proper withdrawal of the syringe, checking for anything. There was a massive bleeding which started in the mouth. Massive bleeding. He had to call an oral surgeon. He had to shift that patient to hospital. I don't remember the cause exactly. Of course, it was not related to what he did. But he had to prove the same. Na? Had a lot of tough time proving it. And I'm talking of this thing 10 years back. Of course, if the patient had gone in for that thing, consumer court thing, it would not have been easy for him to save his skin. But even then, it was all over in media. at that time. You had to justify it a lot. The patient, of course, had some hidden medical history only. Again, the fault is on us. We didn't take proper history. So we have to exercise all our skills and our knowledge reasonably. Do not jump onto the patient immediately. सिर्फ इसलिए कि पेशेंट भाग ना जाए, किसी और के पास चला जाए, हम नहीं करेंगे कोई और कर लेगा. अच्छा मुसीबत आपकी किसी और के पास जा रही, जाने दो, शायद आपकी डेस्टिनी में नहीं थे मुसीबत फेस करनी. बी हैप्पी अबाउट इट, काउंट योर ब्लेसिंग्स. सो विकेरियस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, ये सबसे बड़ा पॉइंट है. ये सबसे बड़ा डिफेंस कई लोग लेते हैं, हॉस्पिटल जानबूझ के बोलते हैं अपना वो क्वांटम ऑफ कंपनसेशन कम करने के लिए. आपकी क्लिनिक में भी वैलिड है, कल हॉस्पिटल पे वैलिड नहीं है. Any associate working in your clinic messes up a situation, you are legally responsible. Even if you get the signature of your consultant or your associate on that pad, if the procedure was, the patient came to you, the procedure was done in your clinic, the liability falls on you. Not the consultant, not the associate. It is your responsibility. So, do accordingly. You refer a patient, then your contract ends, sir. Then your contract with that patient ends. Before the procedure, not after complication. After complication, we discuss that scenario in the morning. So, a master is responsible for the acts of a servant. Just to sum it up, not the master-servant thing between a associate and the dentist, but otherwise. So any hospital has a responsibility of any of the messing up by its employees. So sometimes some pleas have been taken many times that this employee is not on our rolls, he is not a permanent employee, whatever reason, the hospital still has to pay compensation. So a doctor can be held responsible for any act of his subordinates, or unless the person is well qualified or experienced enough to do a task. This is the catch, slight catch on the advantageous side. The patient came to you for a root canal. You called an endodontist to your clinic. Suppose he messes up the case. In that case, you might be having a vicarious responsibility, but you can't be held negligent. Quantum of damages can't be, because you exercised a good skill in referring that patient to a consultant who was specialized in that, and even he could not do a better job. In a way speaking, specialists are slightly immune from this thing. But even then, in such a case, if the specialist has caused a perforation with, then he is also in trouble, because that is not a standard competent skill a normal person would do in normal circumstances. A perforation is not a normal thing. So kindly differentiate between a job done and a job done otherwise. So respondent superior, again a plea taken by the hospitals that if negligence is by the assistant or the subordinates, and the superior can't be held responsible. Even the resident doctors or interns usually present this plea. Then the novus actus intravenous, that it was an act of God. हम भी कुछ नहीं कर सकते थे, ये तो भगवान का लिखा हुआ है. ये these are all defense pleas which are taken by people. Some are upheld, some are not. But then tort law is now a relatively new law, and we have say moral responsibility towards the patient where we have caused the damage. And if there is no remedy, it cannot be called a tort, because the essence of tort is to give remedy to a person who has suffered injury, maybe in terms of compensation. So what are the negligent acts? Momentary negligence, it can be due to distraction. मैंने बोला ना, फाइनल एग्जाम्पल ना, उसको टेंशन लेके बेचारा घर से आया था, वो गलती से चली गई गले में, चलो वापस आ गई, बात अलग है, but that is a momentary negligence. Still it will be counted as a negligent act, even if accidentally. They say if you are treating 7 or 8, it's better to tie a floss if you are doing a hand root canal, so that the instrument doesn't even accidentally slips. So inadequate history taking is a very important part of this. wrong diagnosis and treatment, deficiency in care, like nerve injury, removal of a tooth or a wrong removal of tooth, failure to attend on to the patient. अब सुबह ने आपको दुआ बद्दुआ वाली बात बताई थी ना एक, अब उसको इस कंटेक्स्ट में देखो, that is a negligent duty also. If you do that, that is a practice builder tool. If you don't do that, it is a negligent act. रिलेशन आ गया दोनों में, सुबह वाले सेशन में और अब वाले सेशन में, इसी दोनों को Anyways, abandoning a patient is you can't end the contract before the. Even in case of cardiac arrest, God forbid anything such happens in your clinic, but even in cardiac arrest patients, number one, you should be equipped in BLS. आप में से जो लोग आईडीए मेंबर हैं, आईडीए तो हर ब्रांच की अब एक्टिवेटेड है, हर साल में 2 बार 3 बार BLS कराती है. You have to be updated. You have to try your best to save the patient until it arrives. अब तो 108 नंबर वाली एम्बुलेंस हर एक के घर के होती है, बट समटाइम्स cardiac arrest does make a difference. Even I had such a scare in my immediate family just 3 months back. My nanny had a cardiac arrest. She's already a heart patient. So my brother, my cousin is a doctor only. So उनका पोता मैं उनका दोता हूँ जैसे. तो he did say cardiac massage and all those BLS things for approximately 13 to 14 minutes. Easier than done because you get tired after 3 to 4 minutes. All the chest compressions and breathing with an artificial device for 13-14 minutes. After that she was revived. She already had a bypass. Back. So foreign body, any amalgam in tooth sockets, broken RC instruments, but all are negligent acts. Injections and allergies. Patient must be informed of a broken needle. There have been many incidences where disposable syringe needle has broken in the inferior alveolar area. Anyone heard about it? In this area, sometimes there have been incidences where the syringe has the needle tip has broken off. So in this case, responsibility is yours to take the patient to next level or the treatment done, I mentioned. For such things I mentioned, I forgot to mention one practice builder tool. You must be using dispo syringes. How many of you use painless technique apart from cartridge? Or what do you do to give a painless injection except for cartridge? Sorry? Use topical, one, another. Anyone tried anything else? Or use normal dispo van 2cc syringe or 5cc syringe? Use a 26 gauge needle. It is an excellent needle. Comes separately. I use that in my practice since almost 8 years now, 9 years. You have to buy syringe separately, dispo syringe without needle. Buy a needle. A normal needle is 1 inches. 24, 23 gauge, pink or red is 21 inches. Take a 26 gauge needle. That comes in 2 sizes, 1.5 inch and half inch. Half inch is for the pedo, 1.5 inch is for the adults. The beauty is that topical does not, number one. That needle, basically because of its size, because of the speed and because of the barrel or the diameter of the needle. Give it very slow. 1 ml per minute is not practically possible, although it is ideal. But even at the speed of 1.7 or 1.5, and with the increased distance, with a controlled level, you can gain excellent analgesia without any topical also. For kids, you can use and without the fear of breakage of needle. And God forbid, if it breaks, you have to pull it off. First thing, it doesn't break only. 24 inches has a good history of breaking. There are many cases on that. So that thing is an excellent practice builder tool. उस डॉक्टर ने इंजेक्शन लगाया था, पेन नहीं. Gauge is a good option, insulin syringe, but that won't be used for the block. You can use that for infiltration maybe. Some cases prefer to use a slightly costlier. Total cost of the per box पड़ेगी 20 से 30 rupees. वो बॉक्स आपको 150 का मिलता तो आप लोगे तो मे बी 180. But it is a good practice builder tool also and safety wise also. So improper use of paraprofessionals, failure to make a referral to a specialist in case of a need, failure to make a referral to physician. अब आप लोग में से कितने लोग हैं जो बंद करते हैं एक्सट्रैक्शन से पहले किसी हार्ट पेशेंट में मेडिसिन? नहीं करते. थिनर्स, फिजिशियन कंसल्ट करते हैं सारे. फिजिशियन कंसल्ट इज गुड, बट इवन इफ द फिजिशियन सेज इन रिटर्न, वो रिटर्न देते नहीं हैं आपको. अगर रिटर्न नहीं देते हैं, यू आर नॉट सपोज टू स्टॉप द थिनर्स. यू आर नॉट सपोज टू स्टॉप, नॉट इवन फॉर अ डे. बिकॉज आई हैव सीन एंड हर्ड अबाउट मैनी केसेस जिसमें पेशेंट की डेथ इसीलिए हुई कि पेशेंट फेल टू स्टार्ट द थिनर अगैन, एंड द पेशेंट वॉज अ से heavy dependent patient on those things. Basically ADA regulation 2016 we don't have to stop the thinners. So easy to prove that it is a documentary evidence, so kindly be legible. Detail the suggested treatment plan on your prescription slip only. Suggested plan. What you're doing is one thing else. Initially what you have to suggest, and you have to retain that copy with you. So we are bound by emergency where we don't require a drug allergic reaction that is not negligent in emergency cases. Any act done in good faith, but again, there is a chain of fear and its outcome, part of consent only. Under negligent act. And post follow-up instructions, if we have not given, even that is a negligent act on our part. So fees, we have full right to collect the fees. This has been changed. Receipts about 100 are to be issued now, and the entries have to be made. Now the finance part comes in relation to this. False or incorrect certificates are not to be issued, and patient confidentiality has to be maintained. So what is the duty of care? The first thing, we are possessed of the skill and the knowledge for which the procedure we are undertaking. We possess of the skill that we require for this purpose. So any breach of these duties gives a right for action for negligence. As I said, neither the highest nor the lowest degree is expected from us. The standard normal procedure for which we are competent enough, we should be undertaking that. So the courts still have a pragmatic approach, and they also recognize that ours is not a perfect science, and the treatment is full of risks, and the desired outcome may not be achieved sometimes. So as I mentioned, Supreme Court ruling in the morning in detail. So every careless act of a medical man cannot be termed as criminal. That is their judgment. It is criminal only when the medical man exhibits a gross lack of competence or inaction and refers to patient safety, which might have arisen from gross ignorance or negligence. Delhi High Court has also given a similar ruling. One cannot be an expert in such cases, and the opinion regarding medical negligence from the board is valid. And unless the board holds you guilty, you cannot be held negligent. So res ipsa loquitur, that means that certain things are clear, evident clearly, where the patient even doesn't have to prove a thing. You have given an implant with such kind of a smile, incisor with such kind of a, that falls under res ipsa loquitur. you spoil the patient's face in a way, and whatever you do, you cannot rectify that. So in this, the complainant can show that the injury was under control, but then if we have would have exercised a reasonable skill, the injury could have been prevented. So the vicarious liability, as I told you, the employer has to be responsible for the acts of the employees. Contributory negligence, we discussed. The inability on the part of the patient to follow the instructions properly can be attributed to the patient. How does the court decide to award damages? Somebody asked me this question a few days back. That treatment is paid in thousands or hundreds, and compensation is in lakhs. How does the court decide that? They don't decide upon whatever the patient has paid. They decide on what principle, if how much loss the patient has in terms of, number one, pain and suffering, number one, the general damages, and what could have been reusable or usable for that patient with that tooth, maybe that portion, what we have damaged or what caused, and loss of future earnings. This is although applicable in, say, medical science, but in some cases when there is an interior nightmares resulting from a bad implant or a bad smile or anything bad, where even the patient does not allow even a second chance. You fit the prosthesis and it turns out to be an aesthetic nightmare. And you even tell the patient, I'll replace it free of cost. The patient says, oh, I am going to go. There you can't escape. Then that loss of future earnings. Suppose the patient is in such a profession where his physical appearance is important to his survival of his, say, life or his life. But then all the things are taken into account. As I said, no judges are that hard working these days. They just follow the old trend setup or old judgment setup on this, and all those are based on number of times of judgment, number of times the damage has been caused. They just take the multiplication factor into account for that. So there are various sections which are applicable to us. Any death, but then this is a punishable act. Section 336, where we endanger the life and it has to be punished, and section 337, a similar one, but the intent was without any criminal one. Section 338, this is a graver form of 337. That was a hurt causing a normal hurt. This was causing a grievous hurt to the patient by your negligent act. Of course, most of them are not applicable in dentistry, more so in medical profession, but then we have to be aware of this thing. Article 21 has accorded all the citizens to safeguard their right to life, and it assures every citizen that their rights are protected by the state. State means the government. So award of compensation is to civilize the public power and to satisfy the social aspirations. So patient is a consumer, so the services since 1986 are covered under the Consumer Protection Act. And the Consumer Protection Act was in 86, but our services came into their ambit maybe in late 90s. The services rendered by a doctor to a patient are all under CPA, even when you treat the patient for free. So even doctors can be subject to action by the respective state dental council. If the courts award the punishment, the state dental council has the right to withdraw the license, maybe for a limited period or maybe for a indefinite period. So service at a government hospital or any other hospital where all treatments are free and only a token money for registration is charged, they are not covered under CPA. Can be private, can be government hospital, but no private treats for free. So we take it as a government hospitals where we charge only registration fee are immune from CPA. Even at non-government where charges are paid fall under the purview of CPA. So where even the cashless treatments are done and the charges are by insurance company, that is also under CPA. So where the employer bears expenses under medical insurance, even then. So nobody is immune. Whatsoever is treated by us falls under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act. The law of evidence has three basic concepts: the facts which are presented by the complainant or the patient, the facts in issue which has to be proved by the patient himself, and the relevant factors which assist us in proving the negligence part of the doctor. So, but the onus of proof is on the patient who has alleged the same. So the burden of proof lies on them to prove the case. It can be proved by direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, or the fate speaks for them. Res ipsa licita. What are the non-negligent acts? We have discussed many negligent acts. Provide an ambulance due to non-availability. Suppose you are running a hospital, you can't provide an ambulance because of any reason. You don't fall into that. No consent in an emergency. As I told you, we are immune from it. Patient's dissatisfaction with the progress of treatment. मेरा डॉक्टर बुलाता बहुत है मेरे को 10 सिटिंग हो गई रूट कनाल खत्म नहीं हो रही. This is not covered. Patient satisfaction is not criteria for negligence. So remember that. Giving precedence, मेरे से पहले उसकी बारी आ गई, वो भी नहीं है criteria. Charging high is not getting desired relief. Even that doesn't come under negligent act. Negligence is when you have committed a mistake above the humanly error. So what are your defense against negligence? We have discussed this before. Denial defense, हमने contract था ही नहीं. Difficult to reduce. Affirmative, that the cause is other than dental negligence. Delegation of duty to subordinate, but even then the vicarious responsibility will fall upon him. So contributory negligence, assumption of the risks, emergency, and charitable and government where the money is not charged. These are all defense against negligence. So what is the prevention? The prevention is we have to be update with the latest things. Exercise reasonable care and skill. Not go out of our way to do a particular procedure which we are not very possessed to do it. Keep accurate and complete records. I hope now the record keeping makes it sense to us. So employ qualified staff and associates, obtain valid consent, and guard security hazards. So what are the 10 steps in handling the complaints? We have to acknowledge and clarify the complaint. First, know what the patient wants. Investigate fully, remain calm and control. As we discussed in the morning, as you suggested, sometimes there might be a medical negligence problem in that. And sometimes our root behavior might be. We have to investigate before we jump onto any conclusion. So sometimes that thing can go against us also. That is the reason. So find out what the patient wants. We have to know about the expectations of. Take advice from fellow colleagues. Keep the patient informed of all the progress. Decide on a quick response, and any response should not include attacking the patient or otherwise, and attempt always to prove that we are right and you are wrong, blaming the patient, confusing the patient with medical terminology. This should not be done. Any action which should be made known to the patient, and we have to do it swiftly and promptly. As I told you, always treat the patient who is in problem with priority. Because of this reason also, the lesser time your bad name spreads, the better it is for you. So follow up with the patient whose dissatisfaction and maintain confidentiality. Do not go cribbing or say crying over these things. What to do in a claim? If the patient decides that I am going to sue you, then what you do? Documentation has to be immaculate, no discussion with the patient and no tampering with the record. The first thing people do is destroy all the data. जो आपको बचा सकता आपने उसको पहले जला दिया या फाड़ दिया. कैसे बचाएगा? पहले तो होता ही नहीं है डाटा. जहाँ पे नहीं है वो प्रॉब्लम है. ई रिकॉर्ड और फॉर्म 3C या कुछ भी रजिस्टर वाला रिकॉर्ड इसको हम बोलते हैं. मैनुअल रिकॉर्ड में सिर्फ एक डिफरेंस होता है. You have to prove that digital record is not tempered. दूसरा तो आप टेम्पर कर ही नहीं सकते हो. वहाँ पे तो ओवर राइटिंग पता लग जाएगा आपको अगर आप वो करते हो. बट देर आर मेनी वेज यू कैन प्रूव दैट इट इज़ नॉट टैम्पर्ड. बिकॉज तभी मैंने आपको बोला यू हैव टू मेक डिफरेंट कॉलम्स. वो आएंगे भी फाइनेंस में, उसमें ऐड कर दीजिए पेशेंट ऑप्टेड ट्रीटमेंट जो भी है, ट्रीटमेंट ऑफर, ट्रीटमेंट ऑप्टेड, ट्रीटमेंट डन. डेली के डेली अपडेट कीजिए इसको. अनलेस यू हैव अ ह्यूज ओपीडी हो तो भी रिकॉर्ड रखना बहुत ज़रूरी है. बिकॉज 5 months, 6 months down the line, sometimes you will not remember exactly what you had told to the patient and what he had said and what you had done. Maybe you will still remember after seeing the X-ray, yes, I had done same thing. What you had advised in the longer run, what you had done, you might not be remembering that. The patient might have said that. मैंने तो कुछ नहीं बोला, मैंने तो बोला था जैसे मर्जी कर लो. क्या कर लो यार, you can't do anything. मैंने बोला note this thing in front of the patient in your records. That is more important. So हमेशा अगर आप प्रोफेशनल इंडेमनिटी लेते हैं जैसे मैंने डिस्कस किया, तो they'll themselves guide you कि आप do this thing because even they aren't fond of cases blunder. Okay, need for that protection. So patients can demand original. So once the is in court, no discussion is to be made with the patient, and all arguments should be avoided. One thing, avoid admitting of any kind of fault or waiving. Don't do any sort of thing. आजकल डिजिटल डिवाइसेस पे बहुत कुछ रिकॉर्ड होता है. Don't try to do not. अब अनएथिकल डेंटल प्रैक्टिसेस अकॉर्डिंग टू डेंटल काउंसिल ऑफ इंडिया, पहले तो अनरजिस्टर्ड और से अनक्वालिफाइड असिस्टेंट या मैकेनिक रखना ही क्राइम. Nobody can follow this thing because we have very say few qualified personnel in this department, so we cannot fully this thing. Can't style a clinic by the name of dental hospitals unless it is a 10-chair hospital. 10-chair clinic you can stylize it as a hospital, otherwise it is a clinic or a dawakhana. So authorizing any certificate which is untrue, indulging in illegal practice or misusing any drugs. So abusing a professional relationship, promise of secretive care, cure of treatment by any secret drugs, advertising directly through touts or through any other reason, publicizing any skill which you are not possessed of, employing any agent for this purpose, using this thing. Now signboard, this regulation has gone. This is even direction boards are only for the beginners, not for the settled ones. All these things fall in the ambit of unethical practices. So insertion of any paragraphs in press other than change of address, attaching our name to any toothpaste, or usage of words as I said, advertisements in bad test in the morning, best treatment, painless extraction, to lure patients or to mislead patients, not to be done. Abbreviations like FAGE, MIDA, FICD, you can use them, but not to misguide the patient. You make a separate column, memberships and fellowships. Write all those below that. Don't write along with your degrees. Every problem has a solution. You can use these memberships and fellowships, but under the heading of memberships and fellowships. The patient should not be misguided that iske paas to itni degree hai. That is a wrong thing. So that way or the right way, sometimes we follow my way. The number of in India now, so ethics education mandatory. Supposedly we have this thing in our curriculum along with oral surgery, but neither it is taught in the exam. So between morals and values, patients need, it has to be started early so that a colleague who has started his career just now or is in the beginning gets attuned to the morals and ethics of dentistry. As a dentist, we have to use our improvement of our practice. Due consideration to, again, the marketing thing, patients' needs and desires, and safeguarding patients' privacy. We are not supposed to cross the line. We have a duty to be honest and satisfactory approach. Dentistry, as I told you, is not a perfect science, so we have to standard of care. Just because an alternate line of treatment is available, you will not be held negligent. Negligent and can become ground for malpractices. Because of dentists attempt to treat beyond their level of competence. What you can't do, kindly don't jump onto that treatment. Although we cannot guarantee the treatment outcomes, hold then to destiny and lifestyle by others. Thank you so much. We come on to the last part.